Well, Jim, you know what time it is. That's the wrong chord.
You need to start learning how to play the theme for the wide world of sports, where the skier, the agony of defeat, and the skier comes off the goddamn jump and crash lands and slides down the fucking hill, because that's what we're looking at here.
Well, I guess you kind of just threw it out there before I had a chance to introduce it. We're talking about AEW Dynamite here this week.
Well, nobody would have known, would they?
For Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. They're back in Canada. They're in Winnipeg. Seems like they're in Canada every other time they're in Canada. And it was another episode where, as I'm watching it, I'm saying, surely the audience feels the way I do right now about this. It's getting worse and worse and quieter and quieter. They pop still. And there's things they react to. But when they're quiet, it's like someone pressed the off switch on the fans. And they just sit in their seats and don't move. There are times when people come out and they show the crowd and you hear some noise, but when you actually try to see anyone moving, like, or showing signs of life, there isn't any.
They've hit that active noise cancellation.
Tweeted it out. It's like, you ever see that Billy Joel concert in Russia in like 89?
Yeah, they didn't know yet exactly how to react.
Are we allowed to get up and move? Can we snap our fingers? Can we do anything? Well, AEW Dynamite in Winnipeg, Jim.
Well, and we're going to analyze the crowd, what they pop for and why they're potentially popping for it, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, we could talk about and pontificate, is this a parody that they're doing on purpose? Are they doubling down on the audience that the Buckaroos and their ilk have anyway, which is people that only want to see silly wrestling, like the indie crowds in Reseda or wherever the fuck? Or is this really what they think would compete with or be at the level of a regular national television show, much less compete with the competition that's doing the best they've done in years and years? Do they really think that this kind of hokey cable access bullshit with subpar talent and nonsensical fucking happenings can carry it, just because a lot of people take bumps and they have moves and things? I don't know which at this point, because Jericho obviously was all the way into parody. Unless he's, I don't know, completely lost his mind or has his head so far up his own ass that he can fucking smell what he had for lunch yesterday, that he would think that this was a wrestling match or in any way good or entertaining to any kind of average fan. It has to be the ones that get a tickle out of it. And the fact that the goddamn top heel faction, now there's one guy out of four of them that's bigger than the fucking announce team. Even the women. And that they've buried their world champion a week and a half after he's won the title.
That started before he won the title. We started calling it out that it started getting colder and colder. The thing with the fans getting behind Swerve and Swerve chasing Joe, I guess is what I should call it.
Yeah.
Colder and colder. He won the title. It was a really nice moment. 2 matches after Danielson Ospreay. And what have they done since? Is Swerve the main champion in AEW?
This was an official burial, whether intentional or not, as I will explain when we get there. But this, again, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking, and Tony has lost his mind. Either and we know who they are, the EVPs, except for one of my new favorites, old Kenny. The EVPs have got to be blowing his fucking smoke up his ass and giving him false hope in this thing. But Tony's also believes he's having a ball and doesn't realize that, as we mentioned the other day, the NFL announcers were laughing at him and talking about him kind of like, oh, there's the owner's special kid. But the show opens up, and this was May 1st. I would have, if it was April 1st, I could have seen where they were going. But the show opens up with Tony live via satellite from Jacksonville, quote unquote, He's at a fake monitor producing desk. He's in front of a bad green screen. Good Lord. It looked like the weather segment on the TV news in Cedar Rapids, for fuck's sake. And his story while he's sitting there wearing a neck brace, and if anybody in fucking Iowa just happens to be flipping by, somebody, hey, Maud, look at this guy. Is he wearing a neck brace or a toilet seat? And he's reading from a teleprompter. Now he's gone from Tony Kokon to Lithium Larry. It was like the Star Trek episode where the planet's leader was drugged in a room with the microphone in front of his mouth where you couldn't see that his lips weren't moving. As he read this statement, and the gist of it was that he's not medically cleared to travel, so don't worry, folks. I'm going to produce the show from right here in Jacksonville remotely. Is he fucking Spielberg? Is there nobody else can do? What if he has a goddamn gallbladder operation? Do we preempt the show that week?
Were any fans saying, oh no, who will produce the show?
No, there was the panic was spread throughout the company at the thought that he couldn't be there to produce the show. So,
and again, smiling. He wasn't saying,
yes.
He didn't put his hand to his neck like he was hurt. He didn't indicate he was hurt in any way other than he was wearing a neck brace.
He was happy to let you know that he was still going to be able to fucking produce the show. Fuck his pain that he's going through. He's going to be there to make sure that we don't have to preempt this. And again, you got to think for the average person sitting there thinking, okay, if this guy gets hit by a taxi tomorrow, the show goes off the air. This guy is the only one standing in between this program and fucking a test pattern. Fuck, they're fucked. So he's reading the statement, and then suddenly there's static in it. And then it looks like the Max Headroom takeover, Brian, that you know well.
I don't know anything about that, no.
Where there's a picture popping, there's a statute of limitations. There's a picture popping back and forth, and Tony's being interrupted, and finally color bars at AEW, no signal. And then the Buckaroos, Maddie and Nikki, pop up in the TV truck. Quote unquote, in the TV. This may have been a bad green screen too, I don't know. But children think that TV works that way. If they really had taken over the TV truck, all they would have had to do was just switch from Tony's incoming feed live via satellite in Jacksonville to the camera that they had obviously set up in the truck, and it would have been seamless. It would have looked like a camera switch.
No, they overloaded the feed, apparently.
They didn't have to. They're in the truck. They could press one button and Tony's fucking toast. He's off the goddamn air. They're in the truck. If they don't know how TV works, they have people there that could have explained it to them. You don't have to override the feed when you're in charge of the fucking feed, do you? Did HBO hack themselves?
No, that was Captain Midnight.
That's what I'm saying. It's only a real hack if somebody outside does it, not when they do it from master control, you stupid motherfuckers. Anyway, they're running the show tonight. And they were smarmy and douchebaggy and etc. when they did it. Before we go into the regular program, do you have any comments to make about what we've already seen, that these children are in charge of this thing?
You know, I was waiting with anticipation how they were going to follow everything up. The angle last week, and then, of course, Tony appearing in the neck brace at the NFL draft got some attention, but really the angle last week. And it starts with a smiling Tony Khan sitting in, it just looks cheap. It looked really bad. And then again, like you said, overloading the feed in such a fake way that how could anyone take it seriously? And then it goes to the Bucks, and I'm sorry. The Bucks do not work as lead heels. because they can't pull it off. And every time they're talking and acting, and the one who does all the talking now, he's got one of those Adam Cole stutters where at the beginning of every sentence, and it's just not working and not clicking. And it hit me right away. If this is the follow-up, a smiling Tony Khan can't be there, but I'm producing remotely, and then these guys as, you know, like the fucking Muppet Babies of NWO, I don't know what they are out there. You can't believe it. And I said right away, I said, people are going to tune out of this show. And I don't know what the ratings are yet because they haven't come in as we're starting this. But I thought this was a bad first sign.
Which one's Jerry Mahoney and which one's Knucklehead Smith? Look, Google it, kids.
He used to live in Point Lookout, Paul Winchell.
And somebody else needs to look out too, because that's even if they wanted to try to carry this off, wouldn't it have been? Should Tony have been sitting in Shad Khan's office? Should Shad have been saying, Tony, this is too dangerous. You can't do this anymore. No, I'm going to stand up on my own 2 feet, Dad. I'm not going to be run out of this company that I started in the end, you know, just by these turncoats or what, something. But
they should have gone the other way. Yeah, they should have gone the other way. Him like in a bed, like operating the show via tongue, like a Swedish nurse.
But thank you, Nurse Goodbody. So you mean like the fucking what's his name? Goddamn, the Stephen Hawking thing. He blows into a tube and the fucking wrestlers run into the ring.
You got 2 ways to do this. You could try to do it the right way and it won't work. And they can't do it. So that's out. That's not an option. Or I think they should just lean into this and go balls to the wall stupid. But it all has to come from lead.
You mean they haven't?
I think it has to come from lead babyface Tony Khan. And it's still a thing in progress. I'm hoping that the way things are going and degenerating there, we may get for the AEW Championship sometime in the next year, a Tony Khan Anna Jay feud.
No, I'm going the other way. I'm thinking that they're not going to intentionally, they're going to lean into a lot of shit, probably fan blades and all kinds of stuff, but not it really on purpose just because they're dumb. But this is the real ratings draw is going to be as Tony gets more and more desperate, under-medicated, over-medicated, burned out, stressed out, whatever the case, the actual on-camera nervous breakdown, now that he apparently will be a recurring character in this fucking dog and pony show, he's going to be like a comedic Howard Beale, where everybody's going to tune in to see how far his mental breakdown will progress on each week's television.
I guess this is the point for me to ask you this, because there's other stuff that happens in the world of the, heel EVPs later in the show, but this really is the follow-up to Tony getting hurt. Also, his dad coming in the ring. That was the very last thing we saw on Dynamite last week, was Shad Khan. Cut off at 10. So everyone got that episode, like there was no overrun. The last thing we saw was a concerned Shad Khan, if you knew who he was. Otherwise, it was just, who's that concerned man? You had questions. Did they do anything to follow that up properly?
Didn't mention him. Didn't mention old Shad coming out there. Didn't fucking, didn't.
I mean, that's the thing. If you haven't followed AEW since last week's show, and the last thing you saw was all that, and you begin this week with a smiling Tony Khan in a conference room, how are you supposed to take any of this seriously?
Well, but also, they didn't show Shad, but they didn't show any medical treatment that Tony might have undergone. They didn't, it's just that he felt himself to be so indispensable that the people would tune out instantly if they didn't know at the top of the program, Tony's producing it, that had to override any common sense and logic that he got fucking dropped on his head, that little stack of dimes neck that he's got. And a week later, he's sitting up producing a show wearing a fucking Walgreens neck brace, a soft collar, by the way, not even a halo. They should have screwed a halo in. But it's just, it's idiocy. Would you like to go to the next idiot?
And that was the start. It took us that long just to talk about the first like 2 minutes of the show.
Well, I mean, it's here comes Swerve Strickland and Nana to the ring, the new world champion, and they're in Winnipeg. Of course, Kenny's been advertised he's going to return to television. It's his hometown, but it's the new world champion. 3 months ago, they were going batshit for him. They loved him even when he won the title, and now they're in Winnipeg and they're just standing there for Swerve. And as soon as he starts talking, he's doing a promo on the selfish, greedy, childish EVPs that are throwing their weight around and trying to run roughshod or what. So now the world champion is tied up in the orbit of the Lollipop Guild and being made to react or register his displeasure or comment on it or get it over or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be like when Dusty was booking and everyone went out there and talked about Dusty. It's going to be
No, come on now.
Except Dusty was over, but it'll be just like that.
Dusty was over, Dusty drew money.
But it'll be like that concept, the idea that now everyone has to go out there and talk about the EVPs, the booker.
Talk about the booker. And then suddenly Swerve, okay, now that he's talked about somebody else's fucking affair and somebody else's angle, they leave him to he's the new world champion. He says, so I can't wait to find out who the next challenger is going to be. Who's it going to be? Come on out here. And he's waiting for it like it's that easy to, okay, I want to be the fucking next challenger. I'll just walk out there. And would the guy be standing there when he said that?
Why isn't there ever a fight? Like guys trying to get out there first?
Yeah, trying to fucking muscle their way through the fucking door, doing a shoulder-to-shoulder thing, whatever. No. And why shouldn't he be saying, you all need to line up and fight your way through each other and I'll take only the best or whatever. And there'd be some, but no, it fits the Buckaroo's little angle here for him to just say that like a fucking idiot. The world champion comes out there and says, who's it going to be next? Like it's that easy. And of course, Maddie and Nikki pop up on the screen. You're bad-mouthing your bosses. You need a dose of humility. Now they're dressing down the world champion.
In front of a quiet, observant crowd.
In front of a crowd who's standing, not even standing, sitting there. Just, they're not actively throwing rotten tomatoes, but nobody's interested. And we're going to get to it in a match here. Remind me to talk about the reasons why the crowd is reacting some of this way when we get to one of these fucking matches. So the Buckaroos dress down the world champion and tell him they've got a quality opponent for him for the pay-per-view. Play the music. And it's Christian coming out with Dino Douche and Nick Plain and Nick Plain's mom.
Well, they teased a little bit that it was going to be Omega because they said it was a Canadian wrestling legend or whatever they said.
Well, yes, but still, it doesn't matter because nobody thought it was going to be Omega because he really fucked up. I'm not even talking mentally here. But anyway, Christian has the microphone, goes to say something, and suddenly sucker punches Swerve with the fucking microphone. At least Swerve took a better bump than Tony did when he got hit with the microphone last week. But he then gets on him and throws about 4 or 5 punches. And did you see what Nana was doing when his guy gets attacked?
I remember Nana getting attacked. No, what was he doing when Swerve got attacked?
When Christian punched him and starts getting on him, Nana had to stand there. Because his spot wasn't called for yet. Whoever produced this fucking thing, or if they did it like it was supposed to be done, oh, well, it worked in rehearsal. Nana's left standing in the corner. Yes, he's a manager, but he's a grown man, and he's a babyface now, and it buried him. He's having to stand there. Do I step out? What do I do? Because Swerve has to start his comeback. And he makes a comeback on all the heels, boom, 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 but then spins around and comes face to face with Nick Plain's mom and can't hit her because she's a woman. She's also bigger than he is. She had 3 inches on him and it looked like her shoulders were broader. So anyway, so then Swerve pauses because he can't hit the woman and the heels stop him. And now that's Nana's spot. He runs to help and Dino Douche headbutts him. Right? So they didn't. This was a mess. Well, then Christian gives Swerve his finish, the kill switch or whatever, on the belt, on the title belt. And then they have Nick Plain give the cutter to Nana, right? So Swerve, the world champion, took Christian's finish on the belt, and Nana, the manager, took a cutter in the middle of the ring. And then Christian gets the microphone, and as Swerve is laying there face down at his feet, and Nana is laying over by the side of the ropes and not moving, selling, Christian cuts an endless promo. Endless. You want to know how endless, Brian? After 2.5 minutes, even Dino realized that Swerve was being buried, and to hold Swerve down, he put his foot on his back. And Swerve had to act like he was glued to the mat. And after 3.5 minutes, that's how long that Christian was talking over. There have been people been in car wrecks that could stagger to their feet in 3.5 minutes. Nana, one thing, he's a manager, but still he sold a cutter for 3.5 minutes, immobile. The world champion sold the goddamn guy's finish on the belt for 3.5 minutes. And to add insult to injury, the fucking job guy with the heel is standing on him like a fucking doormat. Am I suitably goddamn indignant here?
It went on a very long time. It seems like all Christian's things do. And I knew it would, because it took a while for him to get to like some kind of personal insult. There's always something, and this one it was about, I'll be a better dad to your daughter than you. And it took a while to get there.
This buried the champion because, I'm sorry, but the bumps that Commander and Gravity and Oxygen and Nitrogen and fucking Pentagon and fucking Hexagon and all the other motherfuckers on his show take. This is the world champion. For almost 4 minutes, he's selling a fucking finish, and he's got a guy just standing with his foot on his fucking back. And then Dino pulls Swerve up and pulls one of his braids out, rips his hair, allegedly. Rips his hair out of his head, and Swerve goes back to selling and groveling at their feet. Swerve has already run off the road. Why would you do this to your world champion? This isn't heat. This guy is a fucking doormat. We have cooled him off after giving him the world title because he was the most popular guy and the people demanded it. Now the people in Winnipeg are standing there going, ugh, whenever we're fucking sodomizing him with a rusty fishing knife.
I think it's two things. I think one, the booking for Swerve was always suspect, but he overcame that and got himself over. But the stuff they were doing that they brought up here, him going to Nick Wayne's house and attacking him.
Yes.
It was all ridiculous.
He shouldn't have quit terrorizing infant babies in their cribs. That's when they really liked him.
But the problem was, I think maybe the booking of him, they got a little overconfident with how they understood the audience, because it seems like it's all been downhill from there. And the other thing is, I think there's almost a track record now, and we'll talk about FTR later, the sad state of FTR. But it's not a new thing, whether it's them or whether it's here. AEW really does not do a good job of booking baby faces. There's a reason why everyone's some kind of heel. Whenever someone's presented as a babyface, they lose everything. It's just complete weakness from a babyface. For whatever reason, Tony thinks that's how you book.
Well, because marks think that, the heels are supposed to get heat. Yeah, to an extent, but not scorched earth. And there is not a clear definition between heels and baby faces in this company anyway, to the point where you can tell immediately. And then there's the fact that sooner or later, every babyface becomes a heel, in which case you learn not to trust anybody. Nevertheless.
Are you looking forward to Swerve versus Christian?
No, not after this. We pretty much established that if he can hit the finish on the belt and Swerve is down for 4 minutes, I bet if he hits it in the ring, he can hold him down for 3 seconds.
He wasn't on this show, but who's more popular right now with AEW fans, Swerve Strickland or Will Ospreay?
Ospreay.
Yeah. And he wasn't on this show.
Well, but, he's going to be the next champion. As soon as they finish killing Swerve deader than 4 o'clock, then Ospreay can beat him so they're in time for Wembley. But anyway, speaking of beating people to death, poor old Buddy Matthews, God damn it. I hate it for him because this guy, athletically, visually, physically, physique-wise, I love this fucking guy. You never hear him talk, and he's always doing a spooky house of shit anyway. And maybe he could do it, or maybe he couldn't, but you could do something. Dewey Robertson, the missing link, he completely became another person, and nobody knew that he'd been Dewey Robertson, even though he'd been in the business for 20 years. If you could Dewey Robertson, Buddy Matthews, then you'd have a fucking superstar. Get rid of the name and don't let anybody know that he was ever this fucking person.
You'd have to get rid of the red hair.
Well, that's why Link had a fucking bald head and a green face.
Yeah.
See, but nevertheless, it can be done. You get some of those green Raycons. But anyway, Edge versus Buddy Matthews. What?
Oh, I don't know how that works, but yeah, anything can be done.
Yeah. Edge versus Buddy Matthews. You hear that siren? They're coming to take me away. Ha ha, hee hee, ho ho.
To the funny farm.
Exactly. That was the match. Edge goes to the ring and the lights go out and Malachi Black's spooky voice comes over the PA and he says spooky shit and he laughs and then the music plays and out comes Buddy. And they have a match, a quite extensively long match. And by the way, condolences to referee Aubrey Ed. She was a 4-1 favorite in the Kentucky Derby, but had to be scratched. Apparently had fleas. But anyway, they had a professionally worked house show style match. It wasn't very fast paced, but they had to go 20 minutes, apparently, bell to bell. They had to. They were forced to. And the fans sat there, except if somebody took a big bump or an unexpected bump, or a bump where it looked like somebody may have gotten hurt. And then they would pop and then immediately sit there again. And that's the thing, Brian, they weren't on anybody's side. They are not really looking to see who's going to win or if anyone is going to get even for something. Nothing's personal. They don't even react to, I'll give it, in the WWE now, they're reacting to everybody. Everybody gets their song sung. Everybody gets their name chanted. The guys in promos just have to stand there half the time. The people are doing the work for them. And in the matches, the people react to, yes, I want to see Dominic get shit kicked out of him. Or yes, now we want to see fucking Gunther, be defeated or whatever. Or we want to see Jey Uso fucking yeet somebody. Here, these fans are standing there, sitting there. And if somebody takes a hard bump or they see something they don't expect, they will go, ooh, or wow, and then they'll sit there again. There's no personal connection with any of the talent. Are they coming to the shows because they bought tickets 2 or 3 months ago and they felt like they had to use them even though all their favorites are gone or the bookings turned to shit?
It's like a crowd of pilgrims discovering rock and roll. They just don't know what to do. They just sit there and, they stare.
Because it doesn't.
Are they copying Is Tony got his dream of an American New Japan and now the fans are just acting the way they think they're supposed to?
No. It's not sitting respectfully watching an amazing athletic performance. It's standing there going, would they just get finished with this bullshit? Oh, that looked like it hurt. But is there still going? They're not behind the personalities. They're not behind the issues. They just want to see some bumps. And otherwise, they're standing there staring, watching some of this shit don't belong on fucking TV.
Well, with this match specifically, the fans reacted to some big moves and some near falls, but there were moments where it was dead quiet. Now, maybe someone will be there and they'll say, oh, no, I was there, and you heard people buying hot dogs. There were things happening. On TV, it got dead quiet. You could tell because the announcers start whispering. Their voices get lower. Excalibur doesn't yell when he thinks people behind him could hear him.
Well, and this was a very well-worked match and two athletic guys, but it's not over. And they're just, these crowds are getting more and more the stench of the grisly death of the promotion that's lost the people, and it's going to be much harder to get them back than it was when you started to begin with. Because now instead of somebody giving you a chance on a new thing, they have, and you've turned them off. And then after this match, when Edge finally beats poor Buddy again, Edge starts beating him up. The babyface gets on the heel, and he gets the chairs, and he hits him with a chair, and he goes for a concerto, and Buddy is just laying there for it, and suddenly the lights go out. And when the lights come back on, Malachi Black is standing in the ring beside Edge, telling him to hit Buddy. And then Buddy gets up on his knees and says, yeah, hit me. And fucking Edge raises the chair, and then the lights go out again. And when they come back on, the heels are gone, and fucking Edge is in the ring too. Or still in the ring, like, what the fuck? I wrote the heels were gone and the fans too. Because they're just, the whole thing was hot garbage. It's a parody of just wrestling cliches or tropes, as the kids say.
And we're getting a lot of these long, drawn-out Adam Copeland matches. And I don't know if they're going to hook anyone new or cause people who are, not all the way invested right now to want to sit through them. And then the things with the lights out and the lights on. Why doesn't a babyface just bring a flashlight into the ring? Wouldn't that solve everything? If someone at ringside just turned on their phone, that flashlight, wouldn't that solve anything? It wasn't like the lights went off for like a second. They were off for like, you could tell like, oh, it's enough time for people to move around and go somewhere.
Yes, they're going somewhere. Well, that's the thing also is, more importantly, if you're going to talk about lapses in logic, why does the heel turn the lights off, appear next to the babyface, and then tell the babyface to hit his own partner with the goddamn chair? Because it's spooky? What if he said okay and just gave him brain damage right there? And then Malachi Black's, well, fuck. I guess he did do it, didn't he? What was going to happen?
They planned for the light. They knew that he wouldn't do it, and they could turn out the lights again and run away.
He seemed like he was going to do it. And then Samoa Joe beat Isaiah Cassidy in 3 minutes, and he should.
Now, I forget exactly where we are here, but I was surprised when this match came out, Samoa Joe versus Isaiah Cassidy. I'm finding myself more and more surprised by the things they're putting out there on a show that needs ratings help. And I knew that wouldn't do it. And also, again, I think we're around 45 minutes or so into this episode.
No, we're farther. After Samoa Joe and Isaiah, the next segment, we were at 8:56 p.m., but go ahead.
So we're almost an hour into the episode. Again, they did the big angle last week. If Vince McMahon, and I hate to use him because everyone knows he's just a dirty pervert.
A dirty bird.
But he was the biggest and most successful promoter for many years, so we look at what they did when they did a big angle, and everyone's looking at the Monday Night War, when Vince did a big angle with Austin, when the NWO did a big angle on WCW TV, they followed up on it. It was the talk of conversation. Sometimes the announcers ignored the match. They were talking about the story, about what's going to happen. And that's not always what you want, but sometimes it's necessary. We're an hour into this show. The owner of the company gets beat up by the other executives. His father comes in to make the save. No follow-up. The follow-up is so bad.
He's been kicked off of his own television show.
The follow-up is so bad. And then they said, the Bucks, that they have an ironclad contract. You can't get rid of them. This has been done so poorly, and this has been planned out so poorly. I don't think people who are really into them understand how low this is going to go.
Oh, we got further to fall, because at 8:56 p.m., here he comes to save the day. Pockets. The top of the hour is about to be the company mascot, followed by, you guessed it, the Buckaroos. But they sent Pockets out to try to do a promo, where apparently on their lowest rated weekly television show, Rampage, Trent and Muffin Top Taylor had a garbage indie wet dream match in a parking lot with blood and bumps on cars. And the story is that Trent hurt Muffin Top so bad that he will never wrestle again. Hopefully that's not an angle. We can dream. And Pockets was upset. And as he was starting to get more and more upset about this, it was like listening to the guy who pumps your septic tank try public speaking for the very first time. It looks so amateur. This looks so childish. With what is on the other fucking channel from the WWE that's burning things up now with a boring program again. But a boring program with stars and everybody's over. To these amateur hour dipshits that look like Ned. What the fuck do they expect? So Trent comes out and interrupts, and Pockets is such a bad promo that Trent picked things up. And then Pockets runs at Trent and security stops him. And then here's the cliffhanger. Don Fallis walks out. Also in his hometown of Winnipeg. And he whispers something to Pockets and puts his arm around him and walks to the back with him. And the announcer, so now the evil heel manager is talking to the company mascot, and then everybody else just walked off. What do you think that's all about, Brian?
Oh my God, who cares, and how could they be doing this? I mean, on the good side, we have no more Chuck Taylor for the time being, apparently. On the bad side, everything else. Orange Cassidy on the mic, there's a reason why he hasn't really talked. He's kind of got the voice. I can't even do it. I have to listen to it more. But he's got like this whiny little voice. Like, you can't take him seriously as being the cool character once you hear him talk.
Well, wait a minute. You mean to tell me by looking at the state of him visually, you could take him seriously as a cool character until you heard him talk?
I think if you're susceptible to the cool character Orange Cassidy, one-word answers, short answers have been helpful. Phrasing and sentences aren't helpful to the character.
Not helpful to try to communicate with people.
We just reviewed the sensational Sherry, Dark Side of the Ring. I would say next to you, post-Heenan, the last couple years of Bobby Heenan, he was kind of semi-retired as a manager. He was mostly doing commentary. She was probably the number 2 manager to you for many years. Is Don Callis a 1 or a 2 manager? And he's all over everything in AEW. And he's managing baby faces. He's managing heels. No one is anything. He's not really effective. He got kind of the Dominic Mysterio. He got a version of the Dominic Mysterio boo heat that was more we're playing along with than even the Dominic Mysterio boo.
Yes. But at the time he was presented as the real prick, and he even, colored the scar in and very evil and had the droning 1-chord music. And at least there was some focus that he was an evil person out to cheat people for his own gains. And the people were, but yes, they were working with it. It wasn't real legitimate heat like we want to fight this fucking guy, but it was the thing to do and it was getting over. But now he comes, he goes, he's got the biggest babyface in the company is in his stable, but that babyface is beating all of his other guys. Now here Hobbs, after Moxley choked him out, he also hurt his knee somehow. So Hobbs maybe is gone. Don's down to a Q-tip.
Yeah.
So now he's going to recruit fucking Pockets. What? Point is, Don is meaningless now, whether he cuts a good promo or not, because there's no focus, like there's no focus on anybody else. So who knows what the fuck? But they've negated any, positive effect that he may have had on the program a while back when it was a little bit more focused when they first started it out.
Hey, Jim, before we go forward with the Dynamite review, I have a list here that's been making the rounds of purported AEW injuries. Who's on the injured list currently? Would you like to hear the list?
Sure, go ahead.
Adam Cole, broken ankle.
We knew that.
Bandito, wrist surgery.
Okay.
The Blade, lower back injury.
Sorry to hear that.
Darby Allin, broken ankle, hit by bus.
Broken ankle, hit by bus. Some type of mental injuries as well. Brain damage is a factor. Go ahead.
You don't usually see hit by bus on a list like this. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, back and neck injuries.
And she's been gone for, what, a year and a half?
I don't think it's been that long.
I thought she was just staying home taking care of Adam.
Jamie Hayter, shoulder injury.
They could have given her a new one by now, but okay.
Julia Hart, shoulder injury.
She just got hurt here a little while back, right? A few weeks ago.
Jeff Hardy, broken nose and concussion.
Well, who landed on him? Which one was it?
Sammy Guevara.
Sammy Guevara.
Juice Robinson. You're saying that's the reason? Just Sammy Guevara. All right, Juice Robinson. Back injury.
That's what happened. He got his face landed on by fucking Goofy Guevara.
And I believe his brother has just put out a statement today that he is cleared to come back. So let's see what happens. Juice Robinson, back injury.
Boy, they need him bad.
Keith Lee, undisclosed injury.
I hesitate to say on theory that he's got horrible tsetse virus, and I'll sound like a hard-hearted Hannah type, but I think it might be better if Keith's permanent vacation is find a new line of work at this point, because good Lord.
Kota Ibushi, complicated foot ankle injury.
He looks like fucking Cotton on goddamn King of the Hill now, probably. That's what is complicated about it. When we signed him, he was 5'9". Now he's 4'6". What happened?
Mercedes Moné, ankle injury, returning May 26th.
I think Mercedes Moné has had an angle injury. Every time she does an angle, it hurts her career.
Mark Davis from Aussie Open, broken wrist.
I forgot about him.
Yeah, he's the reason Fletcher's with Don Callis. He has a broken wrist.
Well, that's terrible. You can slow down on that a little bit, for heaven's sake. I can't imagine how fast he'd had to be going to break his wrist.
Miro, shoulder and elbow injuries.
The Bulgarian medical system moves a little bit slower than it does here in America.
Are you knocking?
I've got a squeaky chair now. I didn't want to say anything, but
it's not squeaking. It's knocking. It's like back and forth.
I leaned over and it kind of went wham wham.
All right. Well, MJF. Back to the list here. MJF, torn labrum.
I don't, even if they fix his labia.
Labrum.
I don't want him to come back on this television program. It will fucking ruin his career forever. I think he should keep finding things to get fixed for the next however long he's under contract.
Ortiz with a Ortiz
has a torn Tito?
No, he has a torn pec. I don't know why. I almost said it backwards and it popped myself.
Ortiz has a porn tech?
He has a porn tech.
Regardless of what he's torn, how long ago did he tear it? We haven't seen him in fucking months and months and months.
Paul White, knee injury.
The fuck? He's an announcer. He doesn't even need to walk. Wait a minute. Come to think of it, does he announce anymore? He was announcing their YouTube shows. They don't do YouTube anymore. Have you seen Paul White or heard his name mentioned in the past year and a half?
We saw some footage of him, I want to say it was on the Jericho Cruise wrestling, and he was really struggling getting around. It looked like he could barely walk.
Oh, they did some kind of thing on TV here, last year, where he took a bump on a vehicle and you never saw him again.
Well, we'll see if we see him again, but back to the list. Powerhouse Hobbs, knee injury.
Jesus Christ. So Moxley not only killed his career, but tried to physically fucking harm him in the process.
Ricky Starks, undisclosed injury.
Yeah, it's called fucking buyer's remorse on the contract he signed, probably.
Scorpio Sky, undisclosed injury.
I forgot he was an undisclosed talent. I forgot he was still there.
Wheeler Yuta, undisclosed injury.
What the fuck happened to him?
Undisclosed injury.
Wait a minute. Do you mean, but again, there have been fucking people that have undergone fucking heart transplants and come back to public life quicker than this. He hadn't been on TV in a year and a half. I'd forgotten completely about him.
Again, I don't think
couldn't get away from him at one point.
I don't think it's a year and a half, but it definitely has been a while. Yuka Sakazaki, leg injury.
I'm not even touching that.
And then we have a few here, non-injuries off TV. Adam Hangman Page, family matter. Dralistico, visa issues.
I can understand that.
Kenny Omega, diverticulitis.
Yes.
Penelope Ford, personal. Ruby Soho, maternity leave.
Well, you can't take bumps if you're pregnant.
And finally, Sammy Guevara, suspended.
Who spends most of his time. Okay, I don't know.
Is he ever going to come back? Because, a lot of people are thinking that the suspension, if he got suspended for landing on Jeff Hardy's face, he's been suspended for a while now. He previously got in trouble and suspended in the early days of AEW for comments he had made before then about Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it was about her.
All of a sudden, she debuts and he has never come back again. So a lot of people seem to think it may be a Punk Cabana kind of thing.
Oh, come on. In all seriousness, would she'd have to be a fucking obnoxious bitch to hold a grudge over a fucking smart-ass remark from 5 years ago. And secondly, I guess I can't put it past him if Tony's listening to that type of thing when so far, say what you want to about Sammy being an idiot. Basically, he is an idiot. But he's been a bigger fucking addition to the program with his contributions than she has with hers so far. So which one would you be listening to? No, I think he's probably just suspended because everybody else hates him too. Because every time he gets over with the fans, they learn his true character and then they hate him and then he's a great heel until he fucks somebody up or does something stupid and gets suspended, and then they forget about him entirely. So his horse has left the barn, I think, anyway. I'd love to know why you can just take personal time off, and I'd love to know why family issues prevent you from ever showing up at a goddamn job where you work once a fucking week and make hundreds of thousands of dollars at minimum. I'd love to know what those things are. Not that we want Penelope Pitstop back on television.
Well, again, there are benefits to working for Tony Khan if you have any issues, and this isn't, to laugh about. If you have any issues, he will let you take all the time you need to take care of whatever you need, but certainly there are very few jobs out there in the world that let you do that. But we don't know what her situation or anyone's situation is, so we shouldn't assume anything, but the injuries...
Well, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, but speaking of asses, oh, come on, Paige, one day a fucking week, show your whiny ass up to work. That's what Punk had to smack you around about. You bunch of these fucking clowns think you can show up once a fucking month, because you're over. You're over and out. Anyway, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say you got a hell of a card if you booked everyone who was injured, but let's go back to Dynamite.
Well, let's go back and see if we can blow our noses, because right at the 9 o'clock hour, after we've got the mascot out of there, Renee Moxleygood is in the back with the Buckaroos, and homeless Jack Perry is apparently his new gimmick. And Perry tries to do a promo, and he's not only the same size as Renee, but he's another one of these guys that does an indie level promo that they're playing a wrestling heel, playing a tough guy, or playing this whatever character they've got in their head. And you can tell it's like they've been doing this in camcorders for 15 years, but now they get to do it on real television. And it's just not very good. And I may be slow, I may be late to the party, but this was the first time I realized that they were going to beat up Kenny later on that night in his hometown to further cement themselves as being the evil NWO comprised of fucking Munchkinland citizens.
Oh, I knew that as soon as they announced that Omega was going to be there. There was nothing else to do with them. You had to do that.
I just actually didn't put any thought into it until then. But then we came up on the FTW title match between Chris Jericho and Shipoopy.
Can I just say something here at the start?
Please do.
I regularly shit on Chris Jericho's work because it's shit, and not a lot of people were willing to call him out. More people do it now, but his work has been such garbage for a while now, and he has such bad ideas, and he's really been a problem on this show. This match, although not in any way good, and truly just awful, and he looked awful in there too, and now he's wearing trunks again. This was astoundingly bad to the point where I took it off mute. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. Again, it was all the things that suck, the trading things back and forth, and bad acting, and bad comedy, and spots for no reason, and not being able to find shit. But it was so astoundingly bad.
It all happened in the same match, along with a brutally slow snail's pace.
Incredible.
And by the way, somebody on Twitter with Jericho in the short trunks said, is his new gimmick Bulldog Bob Brown?
I did not see that. Oh, no.
Very, very Winnipeg-centric there, for those of you who know, you know. And they have the FTW title match. They said that poor old Shipoopy, and in 20-something years as a wrestler, it's the first time he's been in a no disqualification match. Well, he certainly took to it well. 1 minute into this thing, Jericho tries the lion salt and came down across one of Shipoopy's legs and landed with his knee in the poor guy's either his guts or his balls, one or the other. And I don't know how he thought, because when he took off and running to do it in Jericho, the guy was laying sideways anyway. I don't know how he thought he was going to land that right. And then Jericho rolls outside, and like you said, he looked under 30 feet of ring skirt to find a garbage can lid. It's like, there's stuff all over there, but he's looking for the one perfect thing. And then by that time, it's been 30 seconds or more, and he goes in, and there's Shipoopy on his hands, just on his knees, right, looking dead at Jericho. And Jericho raised the can up and just fucking hits him with it over the head. And the guy made no effort whatsoever to stop him. He just looked at him. And then Jericho dumps out a bag of hockey pucks in the ring, but then, of course, takes a couple of bumps on him. And then at a glacial pace, barely moving, they began the trading, but not the selling of the chops. And as we mentioned before, it's not the trading of the chops, it's the selling of the chops. Jericho's all looked like shit. Shipoopy's looked like shit and hurt too, because they were stiff. And they had done 18 chops back and forth, slowly, when they went to the break. But when they went to the break, Brian, it was picture in picture. And I decided I would keep counting. And I kept counting. And they came back from the break 3 minutes later, and they had still done nothing but stand there and chop each other one in turn of another. And the count was at 56 chops. And then they did 5 more chops. And then Shapoopy hit 6 fake forearms in the corner and another chop. So this was like 5 minutes of time where that's all that happened. And it was stupid. And then they immediately go from that to Jericho grabs a garbage can and puts it over Shapoopy's head and does the piñata spot with the kendo stick that in every street fight. At some point, a garbage can would go over the heel's fucking head and the babyface would take like a broomstick. It wasn't kendo sticks, goddamn wrestling till the 90s. And do the piñata thing, and the heel would sell at his ears. It was too loud, and whatever the fuck, right? But no. This is the heel putting on the babyface, and then he hits him 6 times with the kendo stick. And Shapoopy starts standing up. He doesn't sell any of that. He stands up and starts walking toward Jericho with the can over his head. Jericho hits him 6 more times, and Shapoopy has backed Jericho into the corner, and Jericho starts begging off from the blind man in the can who can't see him.
Why didn't he hit him in the legs?
And then he started headbutting. This is the guy that had his brain removed. And he's got the can over him, and he's headbutting Jericho with the garbage can.
That's a great gimmick. They remove his brain and replace it with a garbage can.
I think somebody ought to put a bunch of these wrestlers' body parts in garbage cans. And then they each got a kendo stick and sat cross-legged in front of each other and hit each other back and forth, pissy little shots with the kendo sticks. I'm just sitting there like kids fighting with fucking drinking straws. It was embarrassing. It was like this would be drunks that would be in a dive bar somewhere, hired to be the entertainment by being a parody of wrestling. And then Shapoopy brought the table in and set it up. But Big Bill suddenly hits the ring and attacks Shapoopy and chokeslams him through the table and leaves the ring right in front of the referee because, of course, no disqualification, lazy booking. And then Jericho covers him 1, 2, 3, and they gave that 15 minutes. Is this sad, or is it what they deserve?
Who is they?
They, AEW. Is it sad that their television looks like this, that some of the talent has been reduced to this, that the fans had to watch this? Or is it what they all deserve?
They're doubling down, tripling down on everything that isn't working, that we've said for a while. They're not really looking at what's clicking. They're just kind of looking in the moment at what's happening. Orange Cassidy's dead on this show. Adam Copeland right now, you kind of don't want to see. Swerve they've killed. The Bucks are dead. Jericho is ice cold. But he gave us the gift of this match. Again, it was worth seeing because it was so awful. And the pacing was awful. The ideas behind it were awful. I don't know if we'll ever see anything this awful on TV again for a while.
I got faith in him. No, I got faith in him.
Dave Meltzer has given it 7 stars.
He did not. I guarantee you, because the Japanese guy is in it, he'll give it 4.5. Now, hide and watch. Next week, let's come back and talk about that and see who's right. But it's embarrassing. And Again, people don't give a shit about what Jericho's doing, and if somebody takes an exceptionally hard fall or dangerous looking thing, and then they go right back to, Anyway, Claudio Castagnoli wrestled Brian Cage. I've always liked Claudio. Cage is an idiot, but geez, they started trading forearms and clotheslines. And I said, fuck it. Fast forward to the finish. Claudio won with a big swing and a sharpshooter. Did I miss anything, Brian, or were you along with me?
There was no way I was going to watch this match. After the last match, I wanted to go outside and take a break for a few minutes, and I'm not a Claudio fan, and I did not want to see Claudio versus Brian Cage, and I probably could have written down what they were going to do, and they probably would have done it.
Yeah, and again, except for a few bumps and a big swing, yeah. Maria May wrestled Serena Deeb.
This was good.
Well, I'll take your word for it.
It was really good. Serena Deeb, I mean, we always say how talented she is, and then she disappears off TV for years at a time. But she's really good in there, and Mariah May is good. I mean, she hung with her really well. I thought it was really good. This is probably the best match on the entire show.
Well, I'm sorry I missed it, but not that much. Serena got a half crab, and Toni Storm threw in the towel, so that there's going to be problems with Toni and her understudy. But this match, here's the reason why I skipped it and the reason why I was going to bring it up. This match was over at 6 minutes to 10 o'clock. They put Claudio versus Cage and Maria May versus Serena Deeb back to back, and this thing wasn't over till 6 minutes to 10. Did this destroy the rating, which we will find out shortly, for their big angle? Did they run the people off before they got to see what they should have wanted them to fucking see? Why would you do this? Yes, you're saying Kenny's going to be out here, but after these crummy matches with their normal ratings pattern, and people know there's going to be no big match, and Kenny is not exactly known for his captivating soliloquies in the ring. So one would have thought they would have put some kind of main event that would keep people, and then as they hooked him with a hot finish, say, we'll be right back with Kenny. But nevertheless, maybe I'm overanalyzing. Seems like they're doing a fine job without me here, doesn't it, you?
Well, again, this Kenny thing's the last segment of the show. The Tony Khan angle last week was the last segment of the show. Overall, the ratings have been down lately. A lot of people are pointing to the NBA. A lot of people are pointing to the product, but they're doing all this stuff right now with less eyeballs on the show than they've ever had. It just seems like everything right now is lost. There's no direction.
Well, let's talk about the directionless last segment then. And I will ask the question first, why in his hometown, with him being presented as a sympathetic babyface, why does Kenny still get the same rib introduction from old Smiley Roberts? And all the North Carolina, and he got 7 stars, and he does this. And it's so heelish and braggadocious and over the top and silly. Did it fit what he was coming out to do here? Talk about his near fatal illness?
In his hometown? No, I don't think so at all.
They can't help but get in their own way. At least he came out in a suit and not dressed like a bum like most of his ilk do. He looked like something, and here's the thing. You'll probably not hear me say this again, but this was not only the best Kenny Olivier promo ever, I thought he did a fantastic job for the majority of this. Of course, there's always the breaking point.
It was Sonny King talking about being stabbed.
There you go. There you go. And everything that's usually a detriment to Kenny and his speaking worked for this. He doesn't have a lot of personality. He doesn't have a lot of excitement to him. He's so either laid back, smiley, blasé, breathy, awkward at public speaking, unassuming, humble, lovable, whatever the fuck you want to. That doesn't work for a wrestler. Doesn't work for a fucking wrestling promo. Doesn't work for goddamn conflict or fucking animosity or whatever. But it worked when he came out and told what apparently is a true story, or much of it has to be true. It's rooted in fact about his diverticulitis. And this was incredible. Because, and of course, by the time he started talking about his, and the fans did like him, at least they liked something at this point in the show. But by the time he started talking about his illness, boom, it was 10 o'clock, so your DVR cut off. But I did record the program after, because when I realized they were going to kick the shit out of Kenny, I said, well, and it's Rampage afterwards anyway, because that show is like a fucking redheaded stepchild. It searches for a home on a regular basis. I knew they were going to run over, and I wanted to see what was going to happen, so I recorded that. But he told the story and did a good job with it. He got the thing over, that he has diverticulitis. It's nearly ended his career. That blunt force trauma to the stomach could kill him. And at one point, he thought he was scared to be a wrestler. His hands were shaking when he was watching. Maybe he'd come out there tonight and say, I'm going to retire. But then as he watched Dynasty and he put that over, he knew he needed to be back in the ring because his hands were shaking from withdrawal. Search your own line. It was his best promo ever. And he promised the fans that it's not over until he exhausts every option on getting back in the ring. That was a great piece of business. And as he segued into now starting to talk about the fucking heels, if he had real heels to work with, MJF, he could have got heat. If he had real heels to capitalize on this story that he had told, this promo he had done, I would say that they would stand a chance of doing business with something rather than just the brand name and the faithful following them no matter what they do or say. And MJF or a serious heel, you could have accomplished something here. But as Kenny himself said, while we're talking about colostomy bags, let's talk about two other shit bags. And he got shit bleeped, but that was a good line. But he called the Buckaroos out. He said they've embarrassed themselves, the way they've been acting and the things they've done. Well, there's another EVP around here, and you can't fire me. You can fire me out of the elite, but you can't fire me because a part of the power in this company belongs to me. Now, here's the problem. As we've mentioned before, it works when you've got Triple H, the chief content officer of a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, and you've got a movie star or ex-wrestler that sits on the board of directors. There can be a power struggle. But in this mom and pop, or should I say Richie Rich and Cadbury fucking operation, whether the goddamn EVPs or not, Tony Khan has made it abundantly clear he's the boss, he's the owner, he's the founder, he's the booker, he's the fucking chief cook and bottle washer, right? In every statement. So it's still a ridiculous premise that Tony was allowing these two other smarmy douchebags to run around and run wild without jerking a knot in their tail. And now Tony has allegedly been severely injured by these people, and he can't fire them because they've got Brian, you've done more corporate work than I have. Is it possible to write an ironclad no-cut contract where you can walk in the goddamn boss's office, pick him upside down, drop him headfirst on the table, and put him in a goddamn neck brace, and that still doesn't void any clause in that contract?
You can write any kind of contract. Is it enforceable? I don't think so.
Okay, so anyway, it's a ridiculous premise to the fans, but still...
Although, if you would say, what organization would have such a shitty legal department that some bullshit like this would get by in a contract, I would believe it would be AEW and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You got me there. So then, when he says a part of the power in this company still belongs to me, they play music, and here comes Cody. And
Okada, just for anyone new.
Cody, they lost the guy that draws the money, and they replaced him with a Japanese kid that's dyeing his fucking hair like him. Is he limping now? Was that the way he normally walks? When he came to the ring, he looked like he was 50 or 60 years old, not in the prime of his athletic career.
I did not notice a limp. I'll go back and check.
It wasn't even a pronounced limp. It was just like a stooped over, I'm kind of sore. I'm walking from side to side, not really moving too spry. I think it's another Japanese guy that's gone to the Tony Khan retirement plan. Ibushi got signed, went to do somebody else's show, blew both his fucking ankles out, and is going to be operated on and out of business for 2 years.
I don't think Okada's as broken down as Ibushi. I don't know if too many wrestlers are. But there is something to the idea that Okada's coming here after a pretty hard schedule for a long time at New Japan. It may not be New Japan of the 80s and 90s, but they work a lot of shows, and they work you see a stupid style match in a lot of ways in terms of the stuff you're doing that you're laying in. All those guys are physically beat down. He was the main guy for a while, so he's a little younger than Ibushi, but still he's got a lot of wear and tear, so you have to wonder.
Well, he didn't look the picture of health, but anyway, Kenny says, "Hey, give me a couple of months and we can settle it in an AEW ring." And Cody said, "Well, I am the best bout machine now." Because the best bout machine being Kenny's Japanese nickname. Over there, when they do things that almost resemble English, but don't make a lot of sense in actual practice in this country. That's why all these dipshits in this company are taking things that don't make a lot of sense and applying them in this country. And then suddenly Jungle Jackoff levels Kenny from behind. And at that point, if you noticed, Brian, Cody stepped right out of the ring and slid a chair to Jungle Jack, right? And that was Cody. And otherwise, Kenny starts fighting back on Perry. Perry had hit a couple of security guards with a chair, but then Kenny starts fighting back and suplexed him. Cody had just disappeared down on the floor and done nothing. And he's standing there because we see him again in a minute, but he's standing there watching Kenny beat the shit out of his guy. He's not doing anything. That's why I say, is he hurt? Well, then Kenny takes about 30 seconds, take off his jacket and rip his shirt and point his finger at Perry. And as soon as he points at him, he turns around and runs in the complete opposite direction of his downed opponent so he can get a head of steam up on the ropes. And when he hits those ropes, that's where Cody tries to trip him, but he missed his leg for real. He swept it, he tried to hook it, but he missed it, but Kenny turned around anyway and kicked at him and then turned back around, and Jungle Jackoff gut-shotted him with the chair. And now he's down and he's selling the stomach. And again, this would have been heat with legitimate heels. But
you can't take Jack Perry seriously. He's tiny. He's got a smirk. That's the only thing he's shown in the last few weeks. But whenever you see him physical or even just walking around, certainly on the mic, you can't take him seriously.
It's not there.
Nope.
It's not there. And here come the Buckaroos out, and they're all talking to each other, and they're standing. Nobody's coming out to help this fucking guy that's a ticking time bomb in his stomach in his hometown, one of the EVPs. Not any goddamn security, not any fucking wrestlers, not any referees. They're letting these child-sized pricks own the ring and run wild as they're standing in no hurry whatsoever. And then suddenly FTR's music plays and they come out to make it. They don't even get to touch the heels. The heels bail out, no contact.
And their babyface pop has really become subdued.
There was somebody's going to clear this out as kind of thing. Rather, no, it's FTR. No, not anymore.
It's gone.
It's gone with them too. The crowd wasn't really mad. They're just standing there. The Lollipop Guild left while the doctor was checking on Kenny. And then they're already way into Rampage of, I think they'd transitioned to it or whatever already, or maybe they're doing it. But their transition from Dynamite into Rampage was goddamn fading to black and coming back up 2 seconds later. We're back on Rampage now. But they take Kenny in the back. They do a stretcher job with him. He's taped to the fucking deal. And then as they're going to put him in the ambulance in the back, again, here come these dipshits. And they beat FTR up in the back and run them into shit and leave them laying and then turn Kenny's stretcher over. They had to yuck it up even when they had got to that point. And again, that's as old as the hills. The heel lays the baby face out. He's been carried out on a stretcher, and then the heel comes out and turns it over. Ox Baker, Ernie Ladd, the list goes on and on. But this was a burial, again, of somebody that you've killed FTR off. They've come out to save. Then you go back and beat them up in the back. If the heels,
and who's doing it? It's not Don Callis's group. It's not Powerhouse Hobbs and Ospreay and Takeshita. It's the Bucks and Jack Perry. At least Okada's got some size to him.
Yeah, he's just broken down and barely does anything.
But it's the Bucks who have no size to them, and they're dressed up ridiculously. And Jack Perry, who looks like a kid trying to play the role of a tough guy.
But it's not even the size, just in positioning. If you'd have laid Kenny out, hurt his stomach, and then the heels all hugged and left with no save, then FTR could be in the back trying to help him into the ambulance, and you could jump them from behind. Or if FTR had made the save, but they're not there when they're loading Kenny into the ambulance, and the heels turn him over, and then FTR comes back to help again. But what you do is you basically just beat up and foil all the baby faces all the fucking time. Henceforth, that's why nobody gives a shit about them.
See, this is why Punk and the Bucks could have never worked even if they tried. Because I think Punk probably would have come to the realization pretty quick. It's all me. The Bucks can't do it. Dave Meltzer tweeted out something earlier. Or no, he didn't tweet it out, excuse me. I saw it tweeted out by a bunch of people. It was a quote from him, I believe from Wrestling Observer Radio, just about how it's ice cold. It feels ice cold. If this angle, I don't know if he means the Tony Khan one last week or this one this week, it's an extension of the same thing. If it had happened a couple of years ago, it would have been a big deal. I think the reality that a lot of people never accepted, that we've been saying since the beginning, the Bucks were popular on the indies. The Bucks, their promos, their ideas, their angles, their personalities
their matches
don't work for the majority of wrestling fans. So now they're blowing through top flight things. I mean, if you had a promotion and you said you could beat up the boss, you can get his dad, who everyone knows is a billionaire, to show up, and then you could beat up the guy going to get surgery for diverticulitis. Those are big angles. Those should be big angles. They don't feel like it because of the people involved. They're blowing through all this stuff once again to try to prop up the Bucks, and it isn't working, and it's never not worked this good before. Or this bad before, however you see it.
It's never not worked this good before. There's a double negative in there somewhere, but it ain't working. That ain't working. That's the way you do it. Money for nothing, and your contracts aren't free, but Tony will foot the bill.
Well, that was AEW. Well, go ahead.
And what I was just going to say, I wasn't going to watch the rest of Rampage, because why would you? But they had 45 more minutes of wrestling to go on TBS that night. And
apparently Sky Blue, I didn't see it, and I don't know how much of it aired, because I'm looking at the quarter hours, which just came in. It was the last segment. But there was a street fight or something with Sky Blue. And apparently
about that vicious chair shot?
Well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about apparently it took them 5 minutes to get her out of the barbed wire. She got stuck in the barbed wire.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, well, I'm sorry, because there was a clip going around on Twitter of one of the girls hitting, I think it was Sky Blue, over the head with a fucking chair, and it didn't come within a foot of her head. She'd blocked it with her hands and fucking crumpled down. And it was like a prayers for Sky Blue or whatever. But barbed wire in a women's match.
On Rampage.
Yep. On Rampage. Why not just do it in your own home and take some Polaroids and show them on TV next week?
It would probably generate more revenue that way, I would think, maybe, especially if you set up a website. But Jim, that was AEW Dynamite. Why don't we talk about these ratings? AEW Dynamite and Rampage on TBS May 1st, 2024. Jim, Dynamite, on average, was watched by 703,000 viewers.
Oh, boy, howdy. That's worse than last week, isn't it? Or what? No, wait, last week was worse.
683. Last week was 683, yes. But the West Coast was live.
But the West Coast was live, so they should have gained 8%. So this is worse than last week with the West Coast being live, but it's definitely worse than the week before last week. Holy shit. Okay, but just start reading it off. I predict a steady plummet.
Well, let's go to these numbers here. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Tony Khan show opened to be interrupted by the Young Bucks. Swerve Strickland's live promo and his confrontation with Christian Cage and the Waynes and Killswitch. 794,000 viewers.
Okay, either the big bangers are not performing for them like they have in the past, or elsewise the Big Bang fans are getting smart to this and skipping the last couple of minutes of their program so they don't get any on them here.
And again, as some people will point out, competition. There were basketball games, baseball season has started.
They do that every year, don't they?
They do. The ratings aren't usually this low every year, so we're bringing it up this year.
Bring it up for quarter 2.
Quarter 2, 8:15, 8:30 p.m. Adam Copeland versus Buddy Matthews with picture-in-picture. 693,000 viewers.
Oh, 101 Dalmatians.
Well, the match continued into quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m.
And what a dog.
Copeland versus Matthews continued with picture-in-picture ads, the post-match with the House of Black, and an ad break. Once again, 693,000 viewers.
Well, that's an accomplishment. They kept what they had. Not better, not worse. Come see, come saw.
Well, Kosi Kosa, let's go to the next quarter. It's a wonderful world, la 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 la. 8:45 to 9 p.m., quarter 4. Samoa Joe versus Isaiah Cassidy. Sky Blues promo, an ad break. The Trent Orange Cassidy live promo and angle with Chris Statlander and Don Callis. 662,000 viewers.
Okay, well, and the only surprise is that they only lost 31,000 people, but I'm starting to look, they may do a comeback here at some point to get to their average at this juncture. What's the big 9 o'clock hour where we saw the Buckaroos again?
The big 9 o'clock hour, quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m. The Young Bucks Jack Perry backstage promo and the start of Chris Jericho versus Katsuyori Shibata.
Shipoopy.
With picture-in-picture ads. 732,000 viewers.
Well, so at the top of the hour, maybe a fresh audience, people wanting to give them a chance, they picked up 36 to 70,000 people.
And if there was ever a match to say, what the fuck is happening, this may have been the match, because that was my reaction.
And I'm not sure they're going to keep them with that match.
Quarter 5, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The continuation of Jericho versus Shibata. The post-match with Big Bill. Willow Nightingale, Stokely Hathaway, and Chris Statlander's backstage promo, an ad break, and the start of Brian Cage versus Claudio Castagnoli. 746,000 viewers.
Holy shit, they picked up 14,000 for that segment? Is that an anomaly?
I think if you were flipping through the channels and you saw that Jericho Shibata match, you kind of wanted to see what the fuck it was. It was such a train wreck. You couldn't take your eyes off it.
There's a guy wandering around in the ring with a garbage can on his head. Let's see where this goes.
Is that Chris Jericho? Oh my God. I mean, there's so many different things. But then they ended the segment.
It used to be Jericho.
Well, they ended the segment with Brian Cage versus Claudio, which is the way quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 began, with picture-in-picture ads, an ad break, Rocky Romero's backstage promo, and the start of Serena Deeb versus Mariah May. 643,000 viewers.
Okay, so once the garbage can came off, 103,000 people left again. We're at the low point of the program.
You know, I think in this case, this is one of those weeks where the Jericho match helped, and it was Brian Cage versus Claudio that drove people off, but...
You may be right. I may be crazy. But it just might be a lunatic we're looking for.
Or booking for, I'm not sure. We go now to quarter 8. I remind you, there's an overrun and rampage. Quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. The continuation of Deeb versus May with picture-in-picture. The post-match with Tony Storm. Adam Copeland and Kyle O'Reilly's backstage confrontation. And the start of Kenny Omega's live promo. 668,000 viewers.
So they got 25,000 back before the end of regulation, but they're again barely over 650,000.
And it was 292,000 in the key demo, which is just 2,000 off the low. Oh no, excuse me. The low of the show was 285. So it's just a little bit off the low of the show. So even the demo the network cares about, they're not there for these big angles at the end of the show, but it continued in the Rampage, Jim. Quarter 1 of Rampage, 10 to 10:15 p.m., which is the end of Dynamite. The continuation of the Omega Elite confrontation and backstage angle and
the best promo that Kenny Olivier has ever done in his wrestling career, unfortunately, in the middle of all of this.
Once again, 668,000 viewers, and the key demo went up from 292 to 326.
Wait a minute. How can there be no change whatsoever in the overall viewership, but suddenly 20-something thousand people in this fucking particular demo? There's more of them than there was a minute ago. And it was people over 55 at 10 o'clock. They had a hard bedtime. How does that work?
I'm not exactly sure. And for the record, here's the rest of Rampage, 10:15 to 10:30 p.m. Jay White versus Dante Martin, picture-in-picture. Bullet Club Gold post-match, Deonna Purrazzo promo, 459,000 viewers.
Ouch.
Next quarter, ad break. This is 10:30 to 10:45. Roosh did a promo. Big Bill and Chris Jericho backstage angle. Swerve Strickland backstage promo. Rocky Romero versus Kyle O'Reilly with picture-in-picture. 404,000 viewers. Then we get 10:45 to 11 p.m., continuation of Romero versus O'Reilly. Soraya and Harley Cameron's backstage promo.
She's still there?
An ad break. The Undisputed Kingdom's backstage promo. And the start of the start of Willow Nightingale versus Sky Blue with picture-in-picture. 399,000 viewers. And finally, the 7-minute overrun.
They got an overrun for that?
Well, they got 7 minutes extra for Dynamite, so I guess that pushed it. I don't know how this worked or why they ever need an overrun. It's not helping them in any way. Nightingale versus Sky Blue continue with the post-match with Statlander and Stokely. 11 to 11:07 p.m. 408,000 viewers, 172,000 in the key demo.
So they went in 3 hours from 794,000 viewers to 408,000. They lost 50% of the audience over 3 hours in network prime time. How is that going to set them up for a ballbuster of a rights renewal when they get 3 hours of prime time on the network and they lose 50% of the audience from the start to the finish? I mean, just objectively explain that to me.
If you want to argue that it's worth it for a cable network or anyone because of the key demo number, you know, the argument when AEW started was stop looking at the total overall audience, only look at the key demo because that's the only number at all that the network cares about because it's what the advertisers care about. which has always been a stupid argument if you know anyone who works in television. There's a lot more that goes into it. And the big number keeps going down. The key demo, even that's going down now.
Okay, what was the key demo in quarter 1 and what was the key demo in the overrun at quarter 13 or whatever?
Quarter 1 was 320, quarter 2, which is sometimes the real true number, 307. Here's the entirety of Rampage, starting with the overrun. 326, 203, 180, 177, 172.
So they started at 320 and ended at 172. That they've lost fucking half of that too. Right?
They can't hold an audience. And you see the SmackDown numbers, it's crazy how consistent it is from beginning to end. Raw's a different animal. Raw is probably the better thing to compare Dynamite to just because of cable, and even though Raw's 3 hours.
But still, it's a 3-hour program where we figured out what they lose. If they lose 300,000 viewers, that is maybe 10 or 12% of their audience, whereas in AEW's case, it's 35 or 40.
If you want to give AEW a chance, and you keep giving it a chance every little while, the booking never gets better. If right now they're counting on the fact that they have a bunch of guys who they're going to be able to bring back on this show, return to the roster, get healthy, they're still going to run into Tony's booking. And Tony can't acknowledge that his booking isn't good. Tony truly thinks he understands this. Tony thinks that he has a deep understanding of how wrestling works. And he doesn't. He's a fan who has lots of his dad's money. And it's okay to say that. It's not an insult. It's reality. He thinks he can book, he can't.
And many of the wrestlers that he has signed up are fans who think they have good ideas.
Everyone wants to do their own thing, and nothing seems to get better. At a certain point, you look at your business. If everything is going down, pay-per-view is going down, ratings going down, live attendance going down. Every town they return to, the attendance is down. Nothing is going up. Guys get over, they lose their steam immediately. At a certain point, you got to acknowledge what the problem is.
We'll always have Wembley, though, won't we?
Well, we're going to have it again in a few months, and we'll see how it looks. Texas Stadium 85. And then next year will be Texas Stadium 86. Let's see how many people are there. The problem with AEW, everything is the law of diminishing returns. Always.
We just try to point these things out. We don't revel in it. We don't glory in it. We don't roll around and root around in it like a hog in slop. We just report the facts, and that's why they get mad at us. Because their emperor is not wearing a jock strap, and their favorite wrestlers aren't any fucking good.